Hey everybody, how you doing? This is about to be a really fun video. In this video, we're doing somewhat of a deep dive into 300 Weatherby Magnum. This was because of a request from one of you guys who recently said, hey, you've done in the past those blue light drop videos. Could you do one for 300 Weatherby Mag? And I thought I already did it, but guess what? I didn't. And from this video and all of the ones going forward, I'm going to go even deeper than I have in the past. I'm probably going to redo a bunch of old ones because when I used to do these type videos, I left out some relevant information that would really help you guys out. So 300 Weatherby Mag, let me show you mine that I just picked up not too long ago. And you might guess it, I actually got this one secondhand from my favorite pawn shop in the land, Tolliver's on the square in Manchester, Tennessee. Somebody had traded this in. It's used. This is a Weatherby Vanguard threaded barrel, 26-inch barrel. Comes with a brake. Pretty sweet. I put an Arkin on here. Somebody said, of course he put an Arkin on it. The SH4J Gen 2 is the Arkin I put on here. If you're new to the show, we get 25% off Arkin optics. Not this weekend, not last weekend, all the time. We get 25% off Arkin optics with code WHOTEEWHO, just like you'd think to spell it. But 300 Weatherby Magnum. Pretty sweet, right? Well, the only blue lights that I've got so far and been able to take out to the rest and do some group testing with is the Remington Core Locked. Yes, Remington loads 300 Weatherby Magnum in the Remington Core Lock with a 180 grain core locked projectile. But I'm going to give you 4 pieces of data. I'm not going to drag it out. I'm going to run through it real quick. You guys can freeze the video on these charts and pick and choose to look at whatever you want to look at and whatever data is valuable and relevant to you. So here's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to deep dive into 300 Weatherby Mag and all the blue light choices, including Remington Core Locked, because that's what I have, and then also comparing it to every Weatherby factory loaded projectile that you can get from Weatherby's site right now, with the exception of one that I left off. We'll get into that a little bit further, but I'm going to talk about drop in inches from the muzzle out to 1,200 yards. I started to do 1,000 yards because 300 Weatherby Mag, to me, in my mind, it's a big game catching cartridge. It's not necessarily you're going to go out and do bench rest stuff with it, take it out to a mile. You could, but most people getting 300 Weatherby Mag, in my mind, is hunters. So I started to take it out to 1,000, even though you probably wouldn't hunt with it to 1,000. Then I was like, you know what? Some of the data I'm going to need when I take this stuff out and do my own bench rest just for fun. And the range I go to has 1,200 yards. So I put the data in here. But we're going to talk about drop in inches. We're going to talk about energy out to 1,200 yards, starting with the muzzle velocity and comparing all these factory loads. Then here's what I think is the most relevant information that I didn't used to include because it was more work, but now I'm putting in the work, y'all, to make these videos. I just sat here and color coded all this stuff so we could have a visual for it. But I'm also going to give you, at those distances, the dials in mils if you use mils, and also in MOA if you use MOA. And I'm giving it all to y'all for free. And hopefully this is relevant to you. I'm going to make the note here. This is using the factory velocities and G1 ballistic coefficients to get this data. Your 300 Weatherby Mag might be 50 feet per second off or 100 feet per second off, which could affect and will affect how these charts apply to you and your rig. But it's going to get you real close, if not dead on. all that being said, let's get right to the data. That was a 5-minute intro talking about what we're getting into. But drop in inches. And here is all the projectiles we're going to compare. Remington Core-Locked, Weatherby Barnes TTSX, which is a 180 grain. Weatherby Hammer projectiles. These, I say Weatherby, that's because these are the Weatherby factory loads that you can pick up from their site. The Barnes 180, the Hammer 170, they also have a hammer, I believe that's a 195, that I didn't put in here because I wasn't confident in the ballistic coefficient numbers. But anyways, Weatherby loaded ELDX 200 grain, that's the heaviest. Weatherby loaded Sierra Game King 180 and a Weatherby loaded Swift Sirocco 180. So here we go. Drop in inches. You'll notice everything's sighted in at 100 yards just to give it a fair playing field. 200 yards, it's still pretty fair game. Everything's pretty close. Drop in 2.5 inches. 300 yards. Nothing is still dropped a foot, so we still got some sauce on it. But you can see here the color codes. Green is good, red is not as good. So green meaning in that particular column, it drops the least at that given distance. So you can see the hammers are green across the board, at least out to 1,200 yards with these 6 factory loadings. That Weatherby hammer is going to drop the least out of everything in here. But you guys can freeze this and look at it. The Core-Locked is red. The 170 hammer is green. And then everything else is kind of in the middle there, or pretty parallel out to 1,200 yards. Next, all this same stuff we're going to talk about, energy. So, interesting data point to look at. Also, I have all the ballistic coefficients and muzzle velocities listed here as well. But muzzle velocity, that's at the 0 column. The top 3 is the Core-Locked 180s, the Barnes 180s, and the Hammer 170s, all green. And the ELDX is red. Interestingly enough, though, starting at 200 yards, that ELDX goes from worst to best, bright red to bright green, and then the ELDX carries out the most energy at every given distance as well. Again, you could freeze this. I'm trying not to make this a long video. Pinpoint everything that you want to look at on here. I don't want to make this a long video. I just want to get you the data and you can freeze it if you have a 300 Weatherby mag and this is relevant to you. Now, the dials in mils. I prefer mils. If I have the choice, I just like mils. That's what I'm used to. To a certain extent, I have things memorized in my brain that I've done before. It's like, oh yeah, that many mils. When you guys ask me, what you guys ask me all the time, have at it. Feel free. If I can help you, I'll help you in any way I can. Y'all ask me. Somebody asked me the other day, my 7 Rem mag, I'm trying to fling it at 350 yards, and this is what I'm doing for my MOAs. I had to stop and think and go do the calculations because in my brain, I'm so used to doing mils. I had to go run the calculations to make sure that my thought process with MOA was dead on. But I got them the info that they needed for their scope, which was an MOA. Anyways, here's the dials and mils for all this stuff. If you'll sit here and take note, hey, let's just say 200 yards. Mils, pretty much 0.3. 300 yards, that's pretty much a 0.8. Dial 0.8. 400. Now we're getting a little bit different depending on what you're loading. We got everything from a 1.3 up to a 1.6. But the dials is still pretty comparable. You go up to 1,000. That's where we get the numbers that's stuck in my head from. A lot of times if we're doing like a 6.5 Creedmoor, we're not going to fiddle around with 300 or 400. We'll just, let's send it at 1,000. And that's where I have a lot of those numbers stuck in my head. But looking at 1,000 here, how many mils? Well, the flattest is those Hammer 170s. 6.67. That's pretty respectable. Flat. 30 cal. Then you go to those Core-Locks. It's 2 more mils at a 8.6. Just data if you're looking for it. Again, these are all calculated using the velocities and the G1 ballistic coefficients that are listed on the websites for Remington and Weatherby. So yours might be slightly different, but these are going to get you real close. My puppy dog's over here. Brucey, come here. Brucey, come. He said, man, when are we going to bed? It's too late. It's too late for Bruce. Bruce, come up here and tell everybody hi. Okay, tell everybody hi. They heard you crying on the screen. Say hi. This is Bruce. He's full-blood basset hound. Look at those ears. He's a cutie boy, huh? Yes, he's a cutie boy. He said he's ready for bed. He's only 1 year old. He's just a puppy. Okay, they're just gonna finish this video. But same discussion. MOA. Here's the chart. I'll pop up the chart at all these distances. Yeah, but hey guys, 300 Weatherby Magnum. It's got some boogie on it at the muzzle. In almost all these, over 4,000 foot-pounds of energy. I dig it. I haven't taken any big game with it yet, but hopefully I will soon. Appreciate y'all watching. Hopefully this helps somebody out, either today or tomorrow or in the future. If somebody types into the interwebs, 300 Weatherby Mag, here's some data and some calculations that I just put together, comparing a bunch of different ones. Now, I need to try some more out of my Vanguard. I don't have the dies for this one yet, do I? No, I do not. I got the dies for 257 Weatherby, so stay tuned for that. You hear him? He said, Daddy, it's bedtime. I know. It is 1 o'clock in the morning when we're sitting here filming this, and he's ready for bed. Anyways, appreciate y'all watching. Let me know what you think about 300 Weatherby Mag. We'll see you guys on the next one. Hooty hoo!